Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 8. So we're heading into another week, which of course means new episodes of our favourite shows, and in the case of this channel, one of our favourite shows is The Flash, isn't it? And we are heading into like the middle portion of this season where, things of course start to unravel and we, as the audience, learn who or what is going to be the thorn in the side of not only Barry, but just the rest of Team Flash, for the near future of the show. Now, we went over a few interviews the weekend after the first episode back, after that long break we had it aired, which of course was the Bart and Nora time travel episode sort of thing. And there were a few more interviews that I was going to include in videos over that period of time, but I didn't want to just do like an interview overload and just be doing constant ones. So I'm spreading interviews out that weren't relevant to just straight after that episode. We could have done them in 2 or 3 weeks' time, but I'm just making sure that they have new stuff in them that we haven't gone over before. So it is worth me talking about it, making the videos, which in turn makes it worth you guys watching them as well. But this video will include a portion of an interview, with this portion focusing in on Reverse Flash and where we pick up, with him as well as just the general thing after the events of Armageddon, that revolve around him, if that makes sense. I think that made sense. And where it leads to later into this season and possibly beyond as well. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about everything we go over in this video, because I'm sure there's going to be some things where you'll be like, hey, I want this to happen, or no, I want this to happen, or maybe a mixture. You might agree with me, you might completely disagree with me, one of the two, or somewhere in the middle. But yeah, let me know all your thoughts and theories and predictions and everything like everything like that down there. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, just want to show your support and you're looking forward to anything we go over in this video, why not drop a like on the video to show your support? It helps the channel out. So this interview was between Eric Wallace and the Flash podcast, which of course was the pairing that had the infamous interview in the off season between season 7 and season 8, or this season. But I can confirm this is not a repeat that got people quite frustrated back then. So please don't let that turn you off continuing this video. Now, I'm not including everything in this particular interview, though this was only part 1 of a 2-part interview. There is more in the second part, much more, which we can go into more detail in another video, probably next weekend, just to spread these out a bit. So due to me not going over everything in this first part, the link to it is in the description down below if you want to read it all, but we will be focusing on only part 1 of it, as I said earlier. And as I said earlier as well, this part focusing in on the Reverse Flash stuff. But just quickly before the Reverse Flash focus questions, we will actually start with one on the potential season 9 that's upcoming, and maybe something in it like we saw with the Armageddon event. After seeing the reception Armageddon got, if there is a 9th season, what are the chances we may see a graphic novel in this kind of scope again at the start of next season? Yeah, I was obviously very happy that people seemed to respond very favourably to it. And again, knock on whatever imaginary object we should be knocking on, if we are lucky enough to get a season 9, I do have a crazy idea that I would love to do as a nice big kickoff to the season with some guest stars. I don't want to get my hopes up yet. I, like the rest of you all, are still waiting for a pickup too. But I know how these things work from a more practical level. If we are lucky enough to get that pickup, then very quickly I'm going to be asked, hey, what's the next story? What's the story for next year? I can't wait that long. I need to have a plan in place now. So that's been my job over the last couple of months or so. I would like to have the people who were on the show before in Armageddon, but there's also some new folks. I won't spoil it, but one of the people I'm actually having conversations with in 2 weeks is a Supergirl alum who has never been on our show before. And I'm going to try and get that individual, notice I didn't use any pronouns, onto our show in some way because I love the character so much, one step at a time. So yeah, my overall thoughts on this one specifically is that, I would love another Armageddon event, or another event like Armageddon, might I say, not Armageddon event part 2 or whatever you would call it, whether it is the style or the scope or whatever it might be. And I think most people watching this would agree. I think we all liked Armageddon. Whether you think the final part wasn't as good as the other 4 parts, that's fine, but I think overall the event was incredibly successful. Like, people were talking about it and everything like that, and I think it got us excited for what's to come for the rest of this season. But in regards to getting an event like that again, I think it depends if they're doing an annual crossover with the shows like they did before COVID happened. If there's no crossover next season, like we got, like the last one we got was Crisis, so if there's not like a crossover like we'd usually get, like with Crisis or Elseworlds or Earth X or Invasion or anything like that, then yeah, do another one of these. But if we are getting a crossover event with all the shows having a specific episode and stuff like that. I don't know if there's a reason to do an event like this, because I think an event like Armageddon was to fill that void, unless it's maybe only like a handful of episodes, like it's 3 episodes and it's just like in that Armageddon event style, but not as long or big or whichever way you want to put it, just because you have that annual crossover with all the shows and stuff, like only like what, a month or two later. In regards to this Supergirl character, the only one I can think of is Nia. Like, it's the only one I can think of who hasn't been on the show, like the Flash specifically. Like, she's been in crossovers and stuff like that, but I don't think she's been in a specific Flash episode, because the episode that she was in Crisis was the first one and the last one, which was, I think, the Supergirl episode, and then I think Legends. So she hasn't been on an actual episode of the Flash before, from memory at least. The only other one I can think of, if it's not Nia, is Kelly Olsen, but I mean, Nia seems like the obvious one if you're going to bring a Supergirl character that hasn't been on the show before. And also, she actually has powers, so it works in Supergirl. I think if you're going to have like Kelly go on anything, it might be Batwoman, because that's grounded, and Kelly's abilities, if you want to call it, are grounded because she doesn't actually have abilities, but Nia does. So yeah. But let's move into the Reverse Flash stuff. So the first question, there's only 2, but they are somewhat lengthy, or at least require a lengthy discussion. So I love how Armageddon went back to Eobard Thawne instantly, which is interesting because we usually don't see him for a while after an appearance. Why was it important to make sure he was the driving force of this graphic novel? Well, it was funny. First of all, we had to hide the fact he was in Armageddon. We had to do that because we knew in episode 1 where we were driving to. We know at the end of 3, or episode 3, he's going to be at the wedding, and there's going to be this big surprise. So we had to make sure that with Despero, we were really almost misdirecting the audience and saying, no, this is your sole villain. He's the sole bad guy. Because Reverse Flash is such an integral part of Season 8 as a whole, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that he's sprinkled out in very mysterious ways. I would say keep an eye out for him in ways you may not be expecting, but it was all part of the plan, because Batman has Joker, Superman has Lex Luthor, and the Flash has Reverse Flash. You have to honor that if we're trying to tell the ultimate Flash story, especially in our graphic novels. We have 3 this year, by the way. That's new. We have 1 at the top, 1 in the middle, and 1 in the end, and they are bookended in such a way that we're telling a very big Reverse Flash story. Very big. And to Michael Scott, that's what she said, quote. But yeah, I think we can all agree they did a fantastic job with the Reverse Flash and Despero misdirect within Armageddon. It's definitely one of the highlights of Armageddon, just the realization that that's where they were heading and that's who was behind it and everything like that. Because obviously at the end of season 7, Reverse Flash was like, hold on, Barry's got all this speed, and they weren't on an even level where they could just fight each other. So Reverse Flash had to go to other methods, and that's why Armageddon came up. So even though we might not have liked season 7 as much as previous seasons, or maybe how it, ended and everything like that, it definitely led into Armageddon and the beginning of season 8 in a very strong way. But in regards to like this Reverse Flash story for this season being very big, it makes you wonder, like, is Reverse Flash responsible for characters like Eddie and Ronnie coming back, or just connected in some way, shape, or form? Like, obviously he is an Argus at the moment without his powers in the present day, so it wouldn't surprise me if Barry does go to Reverse Flash, or I guess we can just call him Eobard Thawne, because he's not Reverse Flash at the moment, he doesn't have any speed. So does he go to Eobard Thawne with some questions? And obviously Barry would want answers, just actual answers to explain what's going on. And Eobard could be connected to everything to set up like a big final season conflict in season 9. Like, I know this is all this talk about season 9 not being renewed, but I think it's pretty clear from everything that's being said, and even the whole Grant Gustin contract thing, that I don't think this season is meant to be the final season. Like, and I don't think they can actually write it as the final season, even if they were told halfway through. I think all this leads up into season 9 officially being the last one. So I just think everything this season is going to be connected in a way where it sets up that big final season conflict between Barry and Eobard in season 9. So with Eobard this season, he creates Armageddon, and then later on, maybe he plants things in the timeline, which Barry didn't fix with the time stone because he didn't know about it, which results in what's happening soon with Ronnie, Eddie, and maybe others. And then maybe the final story of the season, the final graphic novel, is this Legion of Zoom story that we're seeing from the comics, like set photos are somewhat suggesting. And Eobard just brings back the, I don't know, greatest hits, if you want to call it, of villains for Barry to face off against, like Zoom, Godspeed, maybe even Savitar, maybe even other people like that. While Earbud maybe doesn't even really, contribute too much. He sits back, maybe has a good laugh. Maybe he's having, sitting back and having a good laugh all within Argus or something like that, which maybe then leads to one last surprise that then leads into season 9. I think that'd be a really, really cool way to do it. And as a fan of the show, a fan of the Flash as a character, and I think most of you watching, I don't know how you could not like that. Them planting all this thing where Reverse Flash is just trying to mess with Barry, but not necessarily directly contributing to that and like actually being there and fighting Barry, and more just all this other stuff going on, which then leads to something right at the end in season 9, which is a much more personal Eobard versus Barry or Flash versus Reverse Flash, story. But the second and last question was something that we on the podcast talked about for years, is wanting to see that future timeline that Eobard comes from and his origin story of really becoming the Reverse Flash. What are the chances that after we got an Armageddon and what you said about him being sprinkled through the season, we will get to see that backstory between them on screen? It was one of the things I specifically wanted to do in Armageddon, and one of the things I specifically wanted to do this season in case it's our last. I have to provide the origin story. The audience needs to know this. I, as a fan, need to know this. We got the story in 805, or episode 5 of season 8, in one of my favorite scenes in Armageddon, which is that Caitlin and Tom Cavanaugh scene. As far as going to the 23rd century and actually seeing it, obviously, as you might imagine, it's something that I'd love to do. It's a wee bit cost prohibitive. I'm not gonna lie. That would be a reason for a season 9 maybe. There's only so much we can do. That's why we go to 2049. It's not too far removed. It's the future, but there's not people in hover cars flying by. It's not Minority Report, obviously. I'll be honest with you, yes, I'd love to see that origin story played out and revisited. I just don't know if it's possible or when or if we can get to it. But yeah, in regards to this, if season 9 is a full-on final storyline with Reverse Flash as the final foe against Barry, big boss battle, final moments, everything like that, surely you have to show the origin, just do the origin on the show. That scene with Caitlin and Eobard was one of my favorites of Armageddon, just like Eric is saying it was for him. I remember Eric Wallace talking about that scene before I think episode 1 had even aired, or maybe it was just after episode 1, and it was all like, what's to come next and everything like that. And I was wondering what it could be, because he just said it was a Caitlin and Thawne scene, I think, from memory, or maybe he just said it was a Caitlin scene, because maybe he's saying Thawne would have been giving it away. I can't remember specifically. Or maybe he said Caitlin and Tom Cavanaugh. Maybe it was like, or Daniel Panabaker and Tom Cavanaugh scene, but nothing really outside of that. But yeah, when that scene aired, it definitely delivered, but also had us wanting to actually see it. I know some people absolutely hate being told rather than being shown, which is what that scene did, I guess. And I'm sort of on the fence with that one as well. Like, sometimes I think it's fine, sometimes it can be a bit frustrating. With this, it would be a bit frustrating if the show ended and we never saw that. But yeah, so that origin is something I 100% want to see, and I'm sure most of you are in that camp as well. Though I do understand, future scene, expensive, I get that, but I think it would be fine if they just did all those origin scenes indoors, like just do them indoors and just have like fancy looking screens to make it look a bit more futuristic, like they've done even with like the Nora episode back in season 5 with Godspeed. I know he says, 2049 is a bit more manageable, but I mean, 23rd century, just, I don't know, put some like glowy crap around it or something and it'll look like it's from that distant future. And if we are going to see how the Reverse Flash and, Flash conflict ends in season 9, we just have to see how it starts. You see the start and then you see the end. So I think that origin story, whether it is an entire episode or sprinkled throughout, whether it's one episode or multiple episodes and flashbacks, I think it's essential. And I think most of you would agree. Some of you might not care and don't really care about seeing it, but for me, it's just something I really, really want to see. But yeah, guys, that's all to go over. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Flash Podcast for this interview, as I said, or providing the interview or doing the interview, which then we can do a video on. As I said, link to it is in the description down below, where there's many more questions that have sort of already are sort of redundant going over at this point in time, because it's more like after episode 6, including some episode 7 stuff. So you can click on it if you want to go read the rest of it. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on it, show support just to help out the channel. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on everything. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.